We also review smartphones now and start with the Motorola Edge 50 Neo. This is an exciting mid-range phone with an elegant design and a 6.4-inch OLED. I tested the 4 cameras in particular and compared them with the iPhone 16 Pro. Sounds unfair, yes, but the results are surprisingly good for Motorola, especially if you can get it for around €300 or pound. It's not available in the US at the moment. I will get to the cameras in a moment, but first let's start to look at the design. The back is made of a faux leather and can be ordered in 5 different Pantone colors. My test device is Poinciana Red, a reddish orange. I think the design is pretty nice, but my girlfriend thinks it looks old. Well, that's a matter of taste, of course. The frame is made of plastic and it's 8.1mm thin and weighs 171 grams. Gorilla Glass 3 sits on the top and it's protected against water and dust according to the IP68 standard and should be shockproof according to the MIL STD810H standard. A fingerprint reader is located below the screen and works quickly and reliably. At the very bottom we get a USB-C port, but unfortunately it's only USB 2.0, so you cannot connect external monitors and the data transfer speeds are slow. It can be charged with up to 68 watts and it can also be charged wirelessly. I tried a Qi 2 power bank and it works, but the magnets are not as strong as Apple's MagSafe. A microSD card slot is missing, but you can use a nano SIM and an eSIM at the same time. The Edge 50 Neo's display is exactly 6.36 inches and offers a resolution of 2670 by 1220 pixels, so at 460 ppi it's very sharp. Sharper than pretty much any tablet, by the way, and I especially like that the display bezels are very narrow. It's a P OLED display and that makes blacks really black, the contrast is good and colors look nicely saturated. It supports up to 120Hz and can even get up to 3000 nits bright. Compared to tablets that we usually review, these specs are amazing. And for a phone, they're great, but not that special either. In any case, the display is great for watching movies, TV shows and YouTube of course. Unfortunately, that's not the case for the speakers, where I was shocked in a negative way. Music and videos sound very tinny and lack a decent bass. But okay, that's something that's always a cutback on a low price device like this. I definitely recommend headphones using Bluetooth or USB-C because there's no headphone jack. At the front sits a 32 megapixel camera and on the back we get 3 cameras and an LED flash. The main camera offers 50 megapixels, an f1.8 aperture and an optical image stabilizer. Then we have a 30 megapixel wide angle camera with f2.2 and a 10 megapixel telephoto camera with f2.0 and an optical image stabilizer again, and it offers a 3x zoom. I visited the Brandenburger Gate in Berlin with the Motorola Edge and the iPhone 16 Pro and took photos with the standard camera apps and standard settings. In a direct comparison of the main cameras, it's immediately clear that the iPhone has more natural colors and less contrast. Motorola is much more aggressive with its post-processing and sharpens much more. If you compare the photos on the phone screen, many might prefer the 50 Neo for this reason. I don't like unedited photos from the iPhone that much because I think that Apple overexposes shadows too much or makes them too bright. This results in a loss of contrast. But if you look closely, you will notice that the iPhone has more details, especially when we look at the bottom of the roof of the Brandenburger Gate. There are significantly more details. If you want, you can add contrast and sharpness to make it more look like the Motorola, of course, only with more details. With the ultra wide angle camera, Motorola has once again significantly increased the sharpness and the iPhone looks more natural. But it actually has fewer details than the Neo. The iPhone's telephoto camera is much better than the Motorola's. The latter looks very soft this time and lacks details, at least in these sample photos at the Brandenburger Gate. In the studio and in RAW format, the Neo's telephoto camera has quite good details, even at high ISO. At the Brandenburger Gate, Motorola has applied the noise reduction too much, resulting in lost details. I also used the telephoto camera to photograph Santa, which was just passing by when I was out. This time we can see details on Santa and he is quite sharp. At first glance, compared to the iPhone, it looks surprisingly good. But when we look at the roof of the church, Motorola's heavy post-processing is at work again. The roof tiles were subject to noise reduction and have completely disappeared. In the studio, I also compared the Edge 50's Neo 50 megapixel mode with the iPhone 16 Pro. Here too, the iPhone has significantly more details than the Motorola, even in high resolution mode. Both front cameras are well suited for selfies. Here, Motorola offers high resolution, but more details are visible on the iPhone again. However, it's good that Motorola doesn't overly sharpen selfies. The iPhone also performs better in low light and significantly more details are visible. But the Edge 50 Neo usually reduces noise quite well, with the main camera at least, even though the ISO value is often higher than with the iPhone. Thanks to the noise reduction and aggressive resharpening, photos in the dark don't look too bad as long as you don't zoom in. Ultimately, however, the photos of the iPhone are better and more detailed. You can get a lot more out of them, especially if you want to edit photos yourself. This is no longer possible with the Motorolas. Once the photo has been over-sharpened, it's hard to undo that. The heavy post-sharpening is also the reason why videos with the Edge 50 Neo look significantly worse compared to the iPhone. We are still at the Brandenburger Gate and the sky is full of artifacts resulting from a mixture of noise reduction and resharpening. By contrast, the sky is completely clear on the iPhone 16 Pro. The difference is especially clear on a large screen, but it may not be as clear on YouTube due to compression. I know the comparison is a bit unfair, but it also shows how good the cameras can be on such an affordable phone these days. The iPhone is more than 3 times as expensive, and I don't think the photos are 3 times better, at least not in good light. What do you think? The Edge 50 Neo is powered by a MediaTek Dimensity 7300 chipset with 12GB RAM and a 512GB internal storage. It will take some time before we have built up a good portfolio of reviewed smartphones for comparisons, and it's no surprise of course that the Edge 50 performs significantly worse than the iPhone in all benchmarks from Geekbench 6 to the 3D Mark tests. That's why my gaming test is more interesting. Fortnite is still one of my favorite titles, and it's not fun at the highest settings because I measured between 10 and 18 FPS. Even with high graphics and 3D resolution set to 75%, it still runs at under 20 FPS. But it consistently achieves 30 FPS after I set the graphics to medium and the 3D resolution to 50%. That's also fun. You can't select 60 or 90 FPS by the way. Diablo Immortal runs beautifully with high graphics settings and is quite smooth. You can't select ultra settings. Otherwise, the Edge 50 Neo performs quite well in everyday use and also handles multitasking well. I edited a few raw photos in Adobe Lightroom and it handles that well too. Unless you are a hardcore gamer, most people will be satisfied with the performance. The Motorola Edge 50 Neo runs Android 14 out of the box, and I think it's great that the interface has only been customized a little bit. Ultimately, we get pure Android, and I always think that's great with Lenovo and Motorola. There's some bloatware pre-installed, but you can just throw it out. Motorola promises to release 5 Android version updates. The battery life is pretty good and I can get by for a good 2 days on a full charge. Well, unless I play a ton of Fortnite, then it's less. When I played an HD YouTube video in an endless loop at maximum brightness, the battery lasted a full 15 hours. The Motorola Edge 50 Neo offers a pretty design and display, and I also think that the cameras are great at this price. The only thing I really dislike are the speakers, although that's normal in this price range. I think the minimum asking price of around 500 euros or 400 pounds is too expensive, but currently you can get it for around 300 euros, and at that price I think it's pretty good. When we review tablets, I always recommend alternatives. That's not the case this time, because we first have to test more phones. And you should never recommend a device based on specs alone. More phones are on their way though, so feel free to subscribe to this channel for more reviews.